Hey guys, it's Kevin, my review for Escape Room Tournament of Champions. And once again, we do center on the character of Zoe. She is having a bit of PTSD from the events of the first one, and basically, you know, hasn't stopped thinking about it within her daily life. And as we know, at the end of the first one, her and Ben have discovered that there's a whole organization around these, you know, very demented and haunted escape rooms, and basically they have to do what they can to go back there to really expose them once and for all. Along the way, they also find themselves entangling some other characters that are also stuck in these escape rooms, and they all have to do what they can in order to survive. So, Escape Room Tournament of Champions, I was not looking forward to the sequel at all. As you guys know, the first one did surprise me for a little bit. There were aspects of it that I did really enjoy, but I just don't think it ever fully came together in the way that I wanted it to. I think that there were some really good ideas, but the third act especially, you know, really brought it down, and knowing where this could potentially go, I had zero faith for this sequel. I thought it was just such a dumb idea to begin with. I didn't think that there was much they could really do to save it, but I was hoping that maybe it could surprise me, considering that the first one almost surprised me. And I will say this, similar to the first movie, this one kind of surprised me at first. This is not a terrible sequel up to a certain point. Escape Room Tournament of Champions is the definition of just a very middle-of-the-road horror sequel, for the most part, that really doesn't do much at all to justify its existence, but we are just getting into it right now. So I do want to say right off the bat, I didn't get into it much with the first one in terms of the acting, so I'm not going to harp on it much here. I will say, the performances this time around were a little bit better, especially when it comes to Taylor Russell. You can see that she really has improved as an actress since then. She's proven that, you know, she has a lot more range in her. Zoe as a character, her fear and her anxiety is a lot more believable. It's not nearly as over the top as it was in that first movie, and that's something I really did enjoy getting to see here. I think she did a good job. Logan Miller is still really good here as well. The two of them do have pretty good chemistry. And the new additions, I didn't mind the new additions of Holland, Roden, or Indya more. I thought that they worked really well here. Everyone else was just kind of fine. Nobody really stuck out to me. Similar to the first one, you know, there's not really a lot to say about the acting here. Now let's get to the directing and the writing, because this is where we get to the aspects that really annoy me about this film. Adam Robitel's directing, once again here, you know, he doesn't do a bad job directing these movies. I do like that he is trying to go for something different. He is trying to make this, you know, feel like something of its own, but as a franchise, there just isn't much different that he brings here. A lot of this feels very much the same in terms of the, you know, in terms of the style of this movie, in terms of the tone of this movie. It's still very, predictable, because you know what can really happen. We know what these escape rooms are all about, and so the suspense and the horror elements, they're just not really there this time around, and I just didn't find his directing to really be anything all that special. And like I said, I think the first one, he at least had some really creative ideas, whereas this time around, I just didn't really feel it. I didn't really feel like he brought anything that different here in terms of the directing, so I just wasn't really that impressed by what he ultimately ended up doing. I will say there are some good sequences here in terms of what he does, but I just didn't really feel like his directing was all that inspired this time around. Let's get into the writing, though, because this is really where we get to the stuff that really annoyed me about this movie. So, for the most part, the screenplay here is pretty straightforward. You know, it's the two of them, and they're basically The only difference this time around is that Zoe and, Ben know what they're doing. They've, dealt with this before, so they have a little bit more knowledge of how to solve all of these different puzzles that they're in and how to escape, and that's kind of an interesting element that they bring to the table here. You also do get to see, like I said, the lingering fear that Zoe has. Pretty much anything that she encounters within her life, it just makes her think of the escape rooms, and I really liked that idea a lot. I thought that was a really good way to really showcase the damage that this is having on her, the effect that this is having on her. I liked that idea a lot. But aside from that, there just isn't a lot that's new here, at least for the first 2 acts of this movie. And again, similar to the first one, you're hearing me talk about the first 2 acts, because I'll get into that third act a little bit. But the first 2 acts, there just isn't a lot that's different here. They go through a series of escape rooms, but this time around, I didn't feel that the escape rooms were as interesting. I do think there was one that really did stick out. It was this bank heist of sorts that takes place. I liked that room a lot. I thought it was very creative, and it actually felt sort of real, and that's something I think they did a good job with here. But there are some they come across where I'm like, this literally doesn't make sense. Like, what is the goal here? And I just felt that it was a little too elaborate for this to really be believable in any way. For me to really buy into the fact that these escape rooms exist and that they can easily, get out of them and there's a way to solve them, I just didn't really buy into it. I also felt that this time around there was a bit of a disconnect with these new characters. I didn't really latch onto any of them. They didn't annoy me or anything, but something I really did like about that first film is that each of these escape rooms were constructed around a certain fear that these characters had, something that really bothered them, that made them remember a memory from their past that they didn't really want to. That's not really the case here. It feels like now they're just in these escape rooms that are kind of similar looking, whether it's really somewhere that's really cold, somewhere that's really hot, it's not really anything specific. There's nothing significant about these escape rooms, and I felt like this film was just lacking a lot in the creativity area, and that was very disappointing to me. I wanted to see more of that, because that was something I really liked about the first one, is like, that's one of the reasons I really liked the tilted room in the first one, because not only was it a really cool idea, but, it also brings about the PTSD that Deborah Ann Wool's character has. There's nothing that's really like that here. It's kind of just like they're in these rooms and they have to solve them, and Zoe and Ben are a bit more ahead of the curve at this point because they've faced it before. So there just isn't really a lot different that's going on here. And then we get to the third act, and once again, I hate to say it, but the third act, I mean, look, the twist in the first movie was really fucking dumb. The twist in this movie sinks the entire fucking franchise. I mean, where they decide to go with the ending of this movie, the way that they conclude everything, it's just so baffling to me that this is what they decided to go with. It honestly feels like something that you joke about. It doesn't seem legitimate. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if this happened? And then it actually happens. I was sitting there so baffled by what they decided to do, so awestruck of what they decided to do. I couldn't believe they went in such a stupid direction, and it's not even that the execution is bad. The idea itself is a terrible one. I mean, there's so much logic that was set up in the first film, and I hate to nitpick things like this because, a lot of these films you got to try to suspend your disbelief. But what they do here, I mean, it's so dumb and just in no way does it benefit this story. It just, there's so much logic that's thrown out the window. There's so much that we thought was going on that doesn't matter anymore. It just strips away a lot of the interest from this entire franchise because now nothing matters anymore. The way that they wrap everything up, it all just feels meaningless at this point. And it is once again here just so they can get that third movie, just so they can build like the next big horror franchise. They want so desperately for this film to spawn like a really, you know, successful horror franchise. And I get it that these are relatively cheap to make, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen this time around. It happened with this one. I never thought it was going to, so I'm not going to say that it's not going to happen because I didn't think this one would happen. But holy shit, what they decided to do here, I just don't understand why they went in this direction. I was so confused by what was going on, and by the time the movie ended, I was just so annoyed by the ridiculous directions they went in. It's not even that, like I said, I thought the execution was bad, or I thought that it just got a little too over the top. No, I think the idea is legitimately a horrible one, and I have no idea why they decided to go with it, but for some reason they did, and it made the movie so much worse as a result. So, yeah, I mean, once again, the writing here is pretty inconsistent, although this time around I think it's a lot more dull, and then it just gets really awful in the last, like, 30 minutes. Cinematography-wise, like I said, it's not nearly as creative this time around. There's a really good sequence in a bank, but other than that, it didn't really stick out to me. The score is fine, too. And I also think this movie is just way too short. I mean, look, I'll say this. It's short enough to where I don't think you're gonna be, like, in pain during this movie. Like, I don't think this is a movie you're gonna be watching and you're gonna be just so utterly annoyed by everything that's going on, but it's also way too short to make any kind of impact. There's nothing really from this movie that I took away from it other than how terrible that third act was. I couldn't get over what they were trying to do. Just Escape Room Tournament of Champions, it's the definition of an unnecessary sequel. There's really nothing here that justifies its existence. There's a couple creative scenes here and there. Taylor Russell and Logan Miller do give pretty strong performances here. I did enjoy some of the ideas that were presented, but it goes in such a illogical and ridiculous direction that at this point I just don't really care what's going to happen in this franchise anymore. I really don't know if they're actually going to get a sequel this time around, but if they do, oh my god, I mean, I am absolutely dreading the direction that they're going in because it's so dumb. It's so dumb. I can't believe that this is what they're deciding to do, but yet they are, and I don't know. Guys, this movie was really dumb, and I am going to give Escape Room Tournament of Champions overall a C-. But over, guys, my review of Escape Room Tournament of Champions. The most guys saw this movie, left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.